Are you looking to set up a business on a reserve? It wouldn't be unreasonable for you to expect that laws governing businesses on reserves are similar to those in other municipalities in Canada. We are, after all, Canadian, right? However, that isn't the case on many reserves. In Canada, there are many laws designed to facilitate, regulate, and protect your businesses and consumers, such as the Competition Act, the Food and Drug Act, and the Hazardous Materials Act. The Competition Act is designed to promote competition among businesses in Canada. No false or misleading advertising. Don't bait and switch. No conspiring with other businesses. And you should be fined under this law. The Food and Drug Act prohibits the sale of foods unfit for human consumption. Sell what you're actually claiming to sell. Don't claim to cure such diseases as cancer and obesity. And most importantly, do not sell putrid or disgusting food, and you should be fined under this law. The Hazardous Products Act regulates products that must be labeled as hazardous. Always provide a material safety data sheet, and if you're selling anything poisonous, flammable, corrosive, or explosive, label it as such, and this law will give you no problems. These are a few Canadian business laws to regulate and facilitate your business. There are many, many more. Unfortunately, these laws don't apply on many reserves in Canada. In some cases, they were prohibited. In other cases, the Supreme Court of Canada has determined that they do not apply. In any case, most reserves in Canada are governed by the Indian Act. The Indian Act was enacted in 1876 by the Government of Canada, 9 years after Confederation, to govern Indians and lands reserved for Indians. It's currently administered by Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development Canada, and is said to be an all-encompassing institution from your bedroom to your boardroom. These are three of the sections which toss out traditional notions of doing business on reserve. Section 20, Section 87, and Section 89. Section 20 determines who may or may not own land on a reserve. In Canada, you either hold a deed to your land or you are a registered owner of a parcel of land. On reserves, only Indians may lawfully possess land, sometimes. But they must first get approval from the Chief and Council, and then final approval must be given by the Minister of Indian Affairs, his or herself. If the Minister approves, the Indian will be issued a certificate of possession, which simply states that they have permission to use a plot of land. No deed and no registration with the province. The land doesn't even have to be surveyed or mapped in any way. This arrangement for possessing land on reserves results in twice the administration costs for both government and business. It can also be confusing, which is why many Indians do not actually have certificates of possession for the lands on which they reside. It further complicates matters, resulting in uncertainty of ownership. Now on to Section 87. This section simply states that no Indian is subject to taxation for the ownership, possession, or use of personal property or land on a reserve. Sounds simple enough. Now on to Section 89. This section states that any real or personal property on a reserve is not subject to mortgage, pledge, or levy, or any other form of attachment, seizure, or execution by anyone other than an Indian or a band. So how do you go about doing business on reserve? You may not lawfully own land. You're at a tax disadvantage to Indians. And you may not provide mortgages to Indians. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Well, the good news is that it's not impossible. Section 1.1 of Section 89 states that a non-Indian may lawfully possess leasehold interest in designated Indian lands. What are designated lands? Lands are considered designated when, by way of referendum, the reserve surrenders a portion of the reserve to the Crown. at which point the lands are no longer considered reserve lands. So, you're not an Indian but want to do business on reserve land? Here are 3 easy steps to doing business with us. First, you must pass a referendum with a majority of eligible voters electing to remove a parcel of land from the reserve. At this point, you will be able to mortgage a building for yourself. Your business may or may not be taxed. It depends on the administrative capacity of the band to do so. Many bands don't have this. So, if you find these 3 steps complicated, a suite of legislation has been designed to bring laws governing First Nations lands in line with those of Canada. These are the First Nations Land Management Act, the First Nations Statistical Management Act, and the First Nations Property Ownership Initiative. You may find it easier to persuade First Nations to adopt these laws.